our embassy to host such a distinguished gathering, a unique occasion for us. We've always had people in this house before, as I was just remarking earlier, who have always have Earth-centric view of the space. So first time we have people who have a space-centric view of the Earth, so which is a unique perspective. I'm sure every bit instructive for each one of us. We are bureaucrats. We tend to get very cynical very quickly. So it's good to sometime presence of dignitaries like you is just enough to sharply focus on our own inadequacies in terms of how we as people tend to look at our own world, really. Astronaut Sunita Williams, astronaut Butch Wilmore, astronaut Nick Hague, SKC's Swales. It's really a pleasure. Is Shubanshu joining us on this screen? Yeah, okay, he's not here. So we'll have our own astronaut Shubanshu Shukla, who recently went up, joining us here. We also welcome other guests from NASA, my colleagues from the embassy and other guests here this evening. It's really a special and a privileged occasion for us to be welcoming. We, India and Indian Space Agency, Indian Space Research Organization and NASA have had a excellent series of cooperation activities over a period of years. Again, it started in our space program. When it started off, it essentially started with a very heavy focus on building space assets which could focus on delivery of education as a governance. That was our primary requirements in early 70s. Education policy had been framed, but education delivery needed to be there. And in 75, we first launched one of our most transformative experiments, which was the satellite instructional television experiment or site. I remember in my school days, I was myself a beneficiary of some of those programs, which were then to be beamed through Doordarshan into the schools. Really, the key aspect of that was the social impact of that. How science interfaces with the social governance and the educational governance in this case was truly remarkable. Clear example that what we do in space is not necessarily esoteric. It has very real impact on the ground. It touches the lives of the people where it matters most, where it really counts. We have since then done several others, path-breaking programs as our own space program evolved. It interfaced very well with how we were on a catch-up curve in that sense in terms of building our space program, building the entire ecosystem of science, engineering, research, and applications built around it, which we could then use downstream in terms of our own economic, social governance, but also the development of science itself. Many experiments, I'm told about this NASA Moon Mineralogy Mapper N3 research program, our Chandrayan's program, Chandrayaan 1 mission, Chandrayaan 3 mission, essentially our mission to the moon. And most recently, in terms of our institutional engagement, India being part of the Artemis Accords, which is a collective effort to beneficial use of the outer space for the entire humankind. Most recently, I think in July, just a couple of months ago, NASA and ISRO collaborated to launch its synthetic aperture radar, NISAR, about which we would hear more as we go along. Again, another example of how we continue to build our partnership, advance science but also deliver to what is required by the society in terms of its practical use. It has truly been a remarkable journey, not just for our respective space programs, but also by the two governments. And in this partnership, the triangulation of our society-to-society engagement, in many ways, not talked about that frequently, but felt very deeply, because this collaboration then actually delivers to the people on the ground in real terms. Future is clearly bright. We are looking at our own, India is looking at its own manned mission to moon, but also its own space program, which we are expecting to be ready between 2028 and 2035, its own space station, and of course the Gaganyaan mission, about which I spoke about. And in all this, NASA has truly been really an exemplary partner for us. I don't think our journey of partnership and cooperation would have reached this far, but for the excellent support partnership we have enjoyed with NASA. On this note, I would like to once again thank 3 astronauts, senior dignitaries from NASA, to be with us here this evening. We will hear soon about their experiences as we progress in the evening, but as we talk to them and try to understand the space and its uniqueness, somewhere along we will also be talking to the inner child in ourselves, because no matter how much we grow, I think the curiosity tag that links to that inner child will always remain alive. And I think somewhere that's probably most germane to how we look at space and how we approach, of course in this case, in a collaborative fashion. So thank you so much for gracing this occasion this evening. We truly value your presence, your support, and your values for us. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's about 3 a.m. there, so I'm sure.
He looks pretty good. So you're wide awake, ready to talk.
Okay, I can't say about wide awake.
It's sunrise somewhere, don't worry.
Well, hello everybody. I'm Casey Swales, Deputy Associate Administrator for NASA, and just have the privilege and honor for being up here with these fine humans. And I will say it's the first time I've been with you all together, so since you've been home. So I had the pleasure of being with Sunny last week. It's good to see you guys as well. And so this is, of course, just such a fun event. I want to thank the ambassador for hosting us. Karen talked a lot about NISAR. I had the pleasure of being in India with the team, and man, just what an incredible mission, incredible launch to see. Karen talked about the dragonflies. It was just magical. It was beautiful. I may or may not have been with her when she bought that beautiful scarf too. We did do a little silk shopping, but it was an amazing trip. And I think it really just shows kind of the will and the collaboration and what can happen when two countries come together. And speaking of collaboration, I think there's no better symbol than our astronauts and demonstrating how that happens. But I want to go back, to, just even starting at the beginning and maybe childhood for you, maybe later in life, but, really kind of talking about inspiration, because that's what you all get to do every day. You get to inspire. So when did you know you wanted to become an astronaut, and who and what inspired you?
Obviously, growing up during the era when space exploration was in its infancy, and being able to visualize and see that, obviously on a little black and white television, is some of those earliest memories that I have in my life, much less, about everything else that takes place in our lives. And certainly that is inspiring, what was taking place in the moon race and those type of things. I wasn't something I set out to do, but over the course of time, as the good Lord allowed me to hit some of these wickets, naval aviator, carrier aviator, test pilot, visited NASA and thought, you know what? maybe that's something that I could try to do. And obviously that eventually played out. So it was a process for me over the course of time, just always intrigued by technology. My mom said my first word was why. It wasn't mom or dad, it was why. So that's just kind of the way I'm wired, and fortunately this played out as it did. I'm grateful.
Man, that must have been tough on your mom. Nick.
Yeah, so I like how Butch mentions the word why, and the ambassador brought up curiosity, and that's really where it starts. When I was young, my parents fostered that sense of curiosity and going and exploring, and whether that was out on the farm and getting lost in the trees, or it was at school, but that foundation leads you along. And so teachers and professors and mentors along the way just kind of continued to fuel that sense of curiosity and exploration, and there's no better job to have where you get to learn so many different things and then just go do experiments. It's awesome.
Amazing. Shubanshu? Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Our first astronaut traveled to space in 1984. I wasn't even there yet. I was born in 1985. So, but I grew up listening to his stories, and what he did up in the space. He was really, he still is a hero for the country. But the thought of becoming an astronaut never really took root because we did not have an active human space program back then. And I think, as Barry was mentioning, for me as well, it was about checking the right boxes. Similar path. I joined the Air Force and thereafter became a test pilot. And so then when the opportunity was there for us to be an astronaut and they wanted test pilots, I was right there. And I think that was very instinctive for me because it was a natural extension from aviation. So I applied, and as luck would have it, one thing led to another, and here I am.
Amazing. Sunny?
Is it on? Oh, there we go. Okay. Everybody has said, I think, some of the similar things. Curiosity and challenges, I think, is another thing that I think I would add. And my parents were amazing influences on me, and always had put us out there to try different things and never be afraid of trying different things. And it is funny because I think about the story of both my parents. My mom's family, Slovenian, she grew up in Ohio, small town outside of Cleveland, and my dad came to the United States, was immigrated. And I think about him leaving India, his home country, and I think to myself, wow, that's brave. I don't think I could do that, Then when people say, oh, what you guys do is really brave, but we have a structure of people, family and friends that support us, and when you are just out there doing it on your own and taking those big steps, I think that is a lot braver. And so I grew up with that. I grew up seeing how people who came from really nothing, very different people, could come together and make something amazing for themselves. My parents moved to Boston, and my father's a really well-known neuroscientist, and I was like, how did you do that? We were so supported. We have so much infrastructure around us, and when you don't have that, and you can find that inside you, that's a huge inspiration. And I think that's what led me to just, after having a lot of difficulty getting through math in college, I decided I can take that step. I could take that courageous step like my father did.
Well, so speaking of bravery, math in college, there's a lot of training that goes on to leading up to flight. Walk us through training. Walk us through what that process is like, and for each of you.
You start with a single system, and you learn it, and then you learn another system, and another, and eventually you put those together, and the process continues. You got to have a solid foundation like anything else in life, so you lay that foundation with learning those systems, and you go from there. For Sunny and I, this last flight, the majority of it wasn't training, it was development. It was developing a new spacecraft, being in that process, and that was an exciting thing to be a part of. Because every single procedure has our signature on it. We changed every procedure, and we added procedures that needed to be there that weren't. And that was a thrilling time to go through that process and be a part of that from the fledgling stages up until actually sitting in the seat and the countdown goes 2-1 and then off you go. And it was just an amazing time, an amazing period for our lives, and that we got to share that together. It was very special.
And Butch, that wasn't your first vehicle.
No, that wasn't. Matter of fact, Sunny has the unique unique status of having flown on 5 different spacecraft, including the International Space Station being one of them. So one of the few people that's had that opportunity. Sonny's one of them.
The other thing in terms of training, there's no way, it's like going to college all over again. And there is subject after subject after subject, and invariably there's a subject that you're not strong in. And so you get through that training together. But I think that's something that people tend to overlook when they're thinking about the space program and the human exploration of space. It's the dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of people that are part of the training team where that is their job. They've invested their hearts and their souls into making sure that we can operate safely and we can do these really complicated things. And it's not just the training in Houston, it's the training around the globe, whether that's up in Canada or it's in Europe or it's in Russia or Japan. You see that same sense of investment. And that's really the secret that makes us successful, because I couldn't have done it on my own.
And Nick, thanks for pointing that out, because there are thousands and thousands of people, on the ground to enable what we do every day in space. And so you guys are also putting a lot of trust and confidence and faith in, everyone across all these organizations.
People you never get a chance to meet. And when you stumble upon another group of people that you haven't had a chance to meet, it's really special. You'll have to fact check me, but the number I throw out when I talk in public is it's 100,000 people that are supporting the 7 people working on orbit.
Sunny?
So training is varied, and Butch, what is the statement that you said you learned when you first came to the astronaut office? What was the advice you were given?
Know everything and perform it well. Hard to do. I can't do it.
It's an overwhelming, daunting task, right? But again, just I think to capitalize on again what Nick said, there's an army of people who are behind you and wanting you to do everything successful, and they do that with joy. You come into a class and people are ready. They want you to learn everything. And then it's up to you to, take that, interior to you and really perform. And you want to. I mean, there's what we're doing, what our space exploration, you want to do the best that you can for everybody out there who's put all that time into it. Inevitably, we make mistakes and we mess up every now and then. And with that, the relationships that we get during all this training, they can actually forgive us a little bit, and we can press on and learn from those mistakes to make these, the next experiment even better and better, and actually use that feedback to inform where the typical human mistakes are. And I think that's how we've grown and gotten so much better over the years. I mean, it's a lot different from when Ken flew on the space station. It is incredible how much advancement has gone on. We're doing things that are, I'm elaborating a little bit, but I've used this example before. I'm down on one end of the Japanese module doing some stem cell research. I look over, Don Pettit is doing some rodent research. Look a little farther down, Nick is the subject, Butch is helping doing some human research, maybe a little bit of shocking. But the whole, in one axis of the space station, we're doing everything from stem cells to people. It's just incredible what we're learning up there. We're not masters of any of it. We are relying on the PIs and all of the people, the thousands of people that Nick mentioned to help us get through that. And we feel like we're doing this as a team. We don't feel like we're doing it individually.
Now, since Butch mentioned you have flown on 5 vehicles, I mean, do you feel like you're starting over training every time? Is it kind of everyone's just a totally different system?
Back to your first question, Casey. It's a challenge. It's a good challenge to take. I think we've been super fortunate in our time frame of space exploration, where we've got to see a bunch of different things. It's not necessarily flying the same spacecraft over and over, so you get to learn more, and you can take that experience that you have and add that into the spacecraft that you're learning. And it was a real joy to have flown a couple different spacecraft before we started on Starliner, because we can use that experience into the development of the procedures and understanding the algorithms and understanding all about the spacecraft. So I think it's been super fun. You never want to sit still, all right? Don't let grass grow under your feet too much.
Shubanshu, so talk to us about the training for the PAM missions.
I definitely do not have as much experience as all the panelists that you have there, having multiple vehicles. I sure hope I do one day. But we were fortunate to we go to Russia for our basic training, and thereafter we were training here at ISRO, working for developing our own Gaganyaan mission. And then when I landed up in US for the Axiom 4 mission, I realized that there are different ways in which we train, but trying to achieve the same thing. And since International Space Station is such a big collaborative project distributed all over the globe, the pattern of training was slightly different. And initial few months were quite challenging for me because, as Barry was saying, that you would pick up a topic, read something about it, and then move on to something else, and read some little aspects of that topic, and then move on to something else. So nothing really made sense in particular in the beginning few months. And only after a few months, when you have gone back to those topics several times, the story starts coming together. So there is some uncertainty or ambiguity in the initial months of training, which is perfectly all right now that I've gone through the process, but that was a bit challenging for me when I started out.
So did we give you a little bit of time to get adjusted once you got up there?
Sorry, can you repeat that for me,
I
please?
said, did we give you a little time to get adjusted once you got up there?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, it did. It prepares you really well, yeah.
Good. So let's talk about Expedition 72. Tell us about what you did while you're up there, what you're most excited about. And the ambassador asked a question, inside around, the wow day that you had. So any of those things. I want to hear more about your mission.
So, Expedition 72, it was a surprise. But that way it was a great surprise. We thought we were, Butch and I thought we were going to just be there for a little slice of Expedition 71. And as the summer grew on, and we were seeing that we probably were going to come back in the springtime, both of us really jumped in and started, what can we do? How do you help? And this is what the team does. I think that's what I think the biggest message from our expeditions. It's about the team. So even before Nick and Alex arrived on the space station, and while we were still Expedition 71, we were pretty good at fixing the toilet, I would say, right? we're pretty good at fixing a necessary pump that we needed up there to process the urine. And these are vital parts of the space station. And so it was an honor to actually have the opportunity to do these types of things. It's an honor to just say, hey, what is left over? How can we help our other crewmates with the timeline? Because initially, the whole team, again, with the team on the ground, had to figure out how they were going to work us in. We had our time to do our Starliner stuff, but that was the only part that they allotted, and then they had to figure out, how can we make them useful? How can we help out the rest of the space station? And then that morphed into Expedition 72, and I think that methodology just continued. It was unique situations, sometimes more difficult, I think, than a normal crew where you have somebody who's experienced and someone who's not experienced. That sort of is a easy hierarchy, an easy way to get things done. Our crew had a lot of experience. Butch mentioned inside we had over 3,000 days between the four of us. Everybody has the way they did it way back on their other expedition, which was obviously the right way. And so there was a lot of communication. And I think that communication really helps the team. And it's one of my impressions that I've taken away, not only from our flight, but from post-flight. People are good. People all like to get to the right answer. Sometimes we just need to stop for a little bit and listen to each other, and then we'll find out the optimal answer. So I would say teamwork is really the key, is what I saw.
Now, do you adjust housekeeping rules once you get up there? Because you said everybody has their way of doing it.
Oh yeah, some people like to just to have you clean that module. Other people like to switch around. We just had to make a decision. At some point in time, you just have to make a decision.
Who's on toilet cleaning duty?
All of us.
So we had this experience that spanned a lot of different touch points, and so it was fun to see everybody come together. And whenever you were first on the station, that's kind of you've locked in, this is the way it should work. And so you got to see Don Pettit, who was up there a little early on, and then you got to see Butch and Sonny's experience. Yes, with socks. I wasn't trying to throw out Expedition 6 or anything and age you.
It's all your fault, socks.
But it was fun to see that evolution. And so Expedition 72, we've come a long way. In my mind, it's just another step, and there's expeditions that have happened since. And so we continue to build off each other and try to, really accomplish all the research and the discovery that we're up there to do. And along the way, we learn a lot about each other. Space is hard, and that's a tagline, but what it really means is it's dynamic, it's complex, and we're always going to have some failure of imagination. We didn't think of this thing that could go wrong, and it's going to catch us off guard, and then we rely on that team to figure out how we're going to solve the problem. And I think that's ultimately the strength of the International Space Station program, is that team is not just one country. The team is 15 plus countries and 200 plus astronauts, and it's a really great team to be a part of.
Exactly. And the representation of just collaboration and unity across the world.
All dedicated to something that is so fundamentally good. We're trying to discover and learn and bring that knowledge to bear for the benefit of humanity.
Thanks, Butch.
Let me give you an example that maybe kind of tells the tale of the administration throughout, because we're talking about support and teamwork and coming together. And you asked what was our most wow moment. I'll tell you what my most satisfying day was on Space Station. It had to do with spacewalk. We actually did surgery on these spacesuits. That's what we do now. I mean, it's basically doing things in space that was not designed to be done in space on these suits because of how everything is flowed out. So over the course of time, we've done really intricate, detailed surgery, so to speak, on the spacesuits. And then I'm the lead. Sonny is helping me suit up Nick. I'm sorry, not Sonny. Don suit up Nick and Sonny to go outside. And that's a huge responsibility, to put someone in a suit to make sure the suit is put together correctly. And then they go out and they do their job and they get back in. And the most satisfying moment, the highlight, is all of that coming together. You're not the limelight when you're the guy at the suit IV. The limelight is the people outside doing it. So you're not in the spotlight. But as far as satisfaction goes, being the individual that's been involved with getting those suits ready, putting the crew members in the suits, they go out, do their mission, they come back, and you open that hatch, successful, and everything, and they get back in and everything's fine. That is so very satisfying, even though you're not in the limelight. And I think that tells the tale of the agency overall and what we do is supporting each other in this big team effort.
Did your measure for success change throughout the course of the mission?
Well, successfully, the number one highest priority in a spacewalk is closing the hatch when you're done, when you get back in. That's number one. Everything else is great because safety is paramount, and it is a pretty risky endeavor to go outside in the vacuum of space in a one-man space capsule shaped like a person, right? That's what that is. And to do that and do it successfully. NASA, we make it look easy. An army of people working diligently, preparing everything. The crew on board obviously getting the suits ready and all of that and working together as a team. And we make it look easy. It is not. It is very difficult to do it successfully as we've done for decades.
The ambassador mentioned inner child moments, and having all of you flown in space before, any inner child moments that were new? Were just the kid in you lights up and gets excited while you're up there?
I think we should ask the rookie.
Thank you so much. I had a lot of childlike moments during this space flight, for sure. Initial few days were hard because your body undergoes a lot of changes and your science doesn't stop and samples have to be preserved, the work has to happen. So it was quite busy. I felt like I joined another office in space. But in a few days, 2 to 3 days, you become really comfortable and start enjoying space. And for me, the first wow moment or the childlike moment was when I started realizing that I can let go of things. So initially I would hold on to things and I would ask my crewmates, Suav and Tibor, and sometimes Peggy. Peggy would obviously always correct me that can you hold on to this camera? Can you hold on to this mic or something? Because I was afraid that it would fall. And everything is falling, so nothing really falls there. So this shift happens after a few days when your mind gets readjusted to this. But yes, we had some really fun moments on station with Crew 10. We played around with M&Ms and we three of us, the rookies, we tried to hide in a CTB-10 and zip ourselves up, and then commander was searching for us for some time. So yes, we did have a lot of kid moment up there in the station while we were there.
And everyone who knows Peggy's laughing about how she corrected you. So let's talk about the science. You know, it's incredible when you think about one of my favorite facts for NASA is anyone that's aged 25 years or less doesn't know a time that we haven't been doing science on the space station. So you mentioned using Nick as a human test subject, but you know, what science were you doing up there?
You know, so we have the opportunity to volunteer to be a human subject for a lot of different studies, and so while I was there, it was about a dozen different studies. The one in particular I'm getting shocked is, you know, as we go deeper into space, we're not going to have the luxury of a gigantic space station that's the size of a football field. We're going to have smaller spaces, and so we're going to have to figure out how do we bring along the exercise equipment that will fit in the space we have. And so using electric stimulation for muscles to make sure that they don't atrophy, it was it's one possible way that we can try to solve that. There's a lot of other different things. You know, one particular example of I was drawing blood looking at my immune system, and our immune systems are suppressed when we're in weightlessness. And why is that happening? And what are the mechanics behind that? I'm the guinea pig. They collect my samples, and then the really smart PhDs on the ground make their conclusions about why that is. But we've still got so much to learn about how being in microgravity affects us, and all of that is going to ultimately benefit people on the ground with better medicines and better quality of life. But it's also going to pave the way for us to be able to go deeper into space on longer missions, and you know, let's go to Mars.
Anything else, science-wise?
Well, this wasn't really, it was our own experiment. It was towards the end of the mission. I think it was our final press conference. And it's about 9 months now, Sunny and I have been there. And for the press conference, I don't remember why, but they spun me. I got balled up and they spun me. I mean, super fast for like 30 seconds. I mean, just around. And I'd always heard that your neurovestibular, your intercircular canals that go dormant. Can go dormant. I stopped, nothing. I mean, my semicircular canals were completely dormant. It did not affect me at all. No dizzy, no eye twitching, no nothing. And what's the impact of that? I don't know. It was our own experiment. Maybe somebody will do an experiment on that, go down the road. But it was just one of those opportune moments where you find something out that you didn't know for sure, but you'd heard about, but sure enough, it's true.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of science on board is just...
I'm sorry, that was one of those kid moments, too.
The amount of science is incredible. I mean, it's everything from, you know, Earth observations to electrostem and, you know, other things that on us, you know, of course, as human beings. And like Nick said, some of that stuff is going to be compiled and been able to help us here on Earth. One thing we don't do, I think, as much that we should do, just as a teaser a little bit, is our own analysis of some of the human samples up in space. And we're going to need to do that. We're going to need to figure out and be able to understand what's going on with us as we take those long journeys. And as we're learning and figuring out how to do that, that advancement in technology analysis can be used here on Earth in places where we don't have, you know, easy access to medicine or doctors. So remote medicine is, I think, a big part of the International Space Station, which has grown throughout the time that we've been up there. So I think that's pretty impressive. But everything from new food sources to capillary action to hydroponics, as well as, you know, like I mentioned, looking out into the universe or looking down into onto the Earth. Amazing science that's going on up on the space station.
We can go back to the rookie again, but as we transition to a commercial space station or space stations, how has the ISS already started to prepare us for that? You know, how have we already started to see a commercial economy grow?
I think that is a great question. If we have to take the example of how some of the past missions have been going, obviously there are long duration missions that NASA has been doing since, as you said, last 25 years, because the station is always manned, occupied. But ever since this commercial framework has been established by NASA and the private astronaut missions have been going, we are getting to see that there are countries who are getting to be a part of human space missions, which necessarily do not even have a space program. And that, I feel, in a sense, is kind of democratizing access of space to everyone. So going forward, and we are seeing this, post-mission effects in these countries, that the enthusiasm about space exploration and pursuing space as a discipline in the country is growing at a very rapid rate after these missions. And so I think that by providing access to people who do not have access otherwise, we are allowing them to get to be a part of something that is much bigger. And by going this route, commercializing the access, I think in a sense we are opening access of space to everyone. We came up with a nice tagline for our mission patch when we were going up IAF for mission, because it was in a sense realizing the return, because for each of the countries, Poland, Hungary and India, we are the second astronauts who were traveling to space after a minimum of 41 years. And so the tagline that we gave was realizing the return. But the original tagline when we were discussing the patch was that, space has space for everyone. Because that is what the scenario and the environment feels like going forward into the future. So I think that it's a very bright future for space exploration, and by distributing it and coming up with a commercial framework for these space missions, I think we are in a way enabling a lot of other people and countries to be able to access space.
Agree. In many ways, it feels like the golden age of space exploration. And Nick, you mentioned, deep space. How do we continue to leverage the ISS, commercial platforms, into Artemis and going beyond to Mars?
Yeah, so I guess first off, point of correction. I think they're referring to Shooks as a rookie is a disservice. He's a veteran space flyer now, so he's got to own that and push back if anybody calls him a rookie. We've still got a lot to learn. We're doing things on board the International Space Station, and we'll need to continue to do things in low Earth orbit in order to have just the pace of discovery keep up with what we need as we go deeper into space. If the repetition of learning is our lunar missions that are on an infrequent basis, or the repetition for how going to Mars and how infrequent that would be, that'll slow everything down. And so we need to continue to figure out how to learn while we're in space, and low Earth orbit is the way to do that. That's everything. If you look at like the science, going back to the science question, if you talk to our science team, 80% of all the consequential papers that have been published based on ISS research have happened in the last 7 years. And so there's this slow exponential growth, because you learn, you stumble, you make your mistakes, but then you start to figure out how you're doing it. And then providing access to everybody to become involved with it allows us to learn from each other. And so that exponential curve can continue to grow and feed into the commercial sector and spread like wildfire if we just enable it.
And kind of expanding on that, and you've all mentioned collaboration. What does Artemis mean to you in terms of collaboration going forward, and how important that is?
To me personally, I think Artemis is, low Earth orbit is one thing, but Artemis is the next big step in taking us away from our home planet. And it just seems right to me that we go more as human beings versus then I'm just from, the United States, or I'm from India, or I'm from Russia. We're going together, and why we're going is collaboration for understanding humanity and making sure we're understanding how we can help each other and protect ourselves. So we have that. We're lucky enough in low Earth orbit to see that view of our planet, where of course borders are very obscured because there's no lines drawn on the real Earth. But when you get even further away, and the amazing iconic pictures from the Apollo program of looking back at our home planet, how could you not think that that's humanity? To me, that's all humanity. I mentioned earlier, that's everybody I know, that's every plant I know, that's every animal I know is there. And when we leave it, we leave as ones. That's what Artemis means to me.
I would just say that, as Sunny mentioned, collaboration. We look back at the last several decades history of spaceflight, human spaceflight. One of the biggest successes is collaboration. And when you go and do things like the moon and even go beyond that, and you go well outside of your experience, that's added risk. And one of the best things we've proven over the last several decades is this collaboration and how well it has worked together when we do things together. And incorporating that into this new endeavor is something I think is very important to continue.
Shubanshu, on the cutting edge of collaboration with our PAM missions?
Yeah, I think I would extend the argument that Sunny was making, and I like to give this analogy. When you are small kids and you start going to your school, your home becomes your identity, and everybody in school, you are from such and such home, your siblings and your parents. And when you switch your school and go to college, your school kind of becomes your identity, and you start talking to your new friends about which school you are from. And when you leave your city and go to some other city for work, you belong to that previous city from where you are. And when I left my country last year and I traveled to the United States, I was, and I still am from India, but there my identity was my country. And so to extend this to the next step, when you leave your planet and go outside, the planet Earth becomes your identity. You in a sense become representatives of humanity, as what Sunny was saying. And I think that's a very strong feeling. It is not just words. You really get that sense when you are traveling up to space. And so in a sense, I feel that space inherently has a nature of collaboration. People coming together from all parts of the globe to make something happen which is humongous, which is magnificent. And the extension of this is now, we are, as you said, low Earth orbit, and now Artemis mission going even beyond and, deeper into space. I think that these are very ambitious and audacious and risky goals. And I think it requires the support and collaboration of the entire planet to make it happen. And I think that's a really good step forward, wherein everybody is coming together to make these missions happen for the greater good of humanity. Thank you.
So beautifully said. And kind of on that note, I'd like to leave everyone with, what do each of you want to leave in terms of legacy? I feel like that's kind of what you were hitting on. And so for you personally.
I don't desire to be remembered personally. It's not important to me. It's what we've accomplished. It's not the individual doing it, it's the team coming together. So you don't have to remember me, but the International Space Station program has been a huge success for decades. And I'm privileged to have been able to take part in that and grateful for that.
Thanks, Butch. Nick?
Yeah, I feel the same way Butch feels about it. It's the best analogy I can come up with is it's being a member of a really big orchestra. And I've got my sheet of music and that's what I'm playing. And at the end of it, if we all play it well and we play well together, it makes some really beautiful music. And so it's just a privilege to be a part of that.
Yeah, and I would agree. I mean, I think we've all seen a lot of changes and advances and challenges that we've taken on as the space programs around the world and done more and more and made what we've done 10 years ago even seem almost easy. 20 years ago seems really easy. So I hope that what we've done and our contributions to the space program will look easy in about 5 years. I don't really, again, need to know who we are, but they know that there's a foundation there, a history there, and then capitalize it and go further, push the next boundaries and the next envelopes.
And Shubanshu?
Yeah, I would for sure not want my legacy to be remembered as a rookie. I'd like to execute several more missions so that this changes. But other than that, as I said, that space exploration are the tail end of what we do, and they should amount to something much bigger. And that is what I would like to see happening. My mission already has created a lot of enthusiasm in my country, and kids have started asking questions in India now, how do I become an astronaut? And I think that to me is a very big win. And I have a similar desire as all the other three, what they have said, really not looking into the future to be remembered as something, but I would like my mission to mean much more than just this travel to space and come back, have real value in other people believing that they can do it too. Thank you.
Sunny, I don't think he's going to let us live that down. So I do have to tell, one story before we get off the stage. So I always say there's such power of NASA and space exploration in general. So much so that when Butch and Sunny landed, and I don't know who all watched it. Raise your hand if you watched the landing. It was beautiful. It was kind of like the dragonflies. You know, I always felt like somebody cued the dragonflies the day of the NISART launch. It was beautiful. But after you guys landed, there were a ton of dolphins that surrounded the capsule, and it was just truly amazing. I had probably no less than 10 people reach out to me that were, not NASA people, but generally fascinated by space, and said, that was amazing that you guys had dolphins there for the landing. How did NASA do that? You should always have dolphins. So that's the magic of space and what NASA brings. So thank you for cueing the dolphins for all of us, and the childlike behavior in all of us. You're all an inspiration, so thank you. Oh, we have time for questions. Excellent. So questions from folks in the audience.
Thank you all very much for what you're doing.
Thank you all very much for what you're doing and the bravery it takes to go into space. As you said, it's hard, it's not easy. A lot of people have made a lot of sacrifices of all sorts of different types along the way, so thank you. My question is, in recent years, I know NASA has done a lot of work to try and connect activities in space. As a matter of fact, for most of my life, NASA has tried to do a lot of work to connect activities in space to benefits here terrestrially. And my question is, as people who have been up in space doing lots of experiments and missions and experiencing it, when you get up to space, what are the thoughts that come to your mind, or what are the experiments or discoveries you have which aren't really relevant to our terrestrial environment, but are relevant to humanity as we go out into space?
So one of the U.S. crew members on Expedition 72 that's not here tonight, Don Pettit, if you know anything about Don Pettit, he's known for his Saturday morning science. And these are all of his projects. He's a scientist. There's no better scientist in the astronaut corps. By comparison, I'm a lab technician that collects a lot of data and samples and sends them back down.
I'm a pilot.
And
I do the toilet.
And so he would be up there and he would set up little demonstrations, little experiments to collect data, and it was just getting its fundamental curiosities, and it was an education every time he got up. He would charge little Teflon rods so that they have a charge, but then he'd also charge water and then drop water droplets around it, and you'd watch them orbit this Teflon rod just to better understand that interaction. He was growing crystals up there because he could grow them in a certain form and shape that you could do it on the ground, but he could do it an order of magnitude larger up there. And so it didn't have any direct impact. It wasn't going to produce a cure-all vaccine for some disease on the ground in the next 3 months, but it was just pushing the boundary and asking that why question, why does this happen? And then pushing that boundary a little further for the sake of broadening our understanding about the universe around us. Maybe that leads to something else down the road. But watching him in action was a treat all in of itself.
Yeah, Nick said it really well in our video that we have, and I think it's going to be released. But when you take gravity out of the equation, there are so many small interactions that we never see on Earth because gravity is so prevalent. And so when you take that element out of the equation, you can actually see hopper crystals being grown. I mean, these are things that Don was doing while he was up there that you just cannot do here on Earth. And it was pretty awesome to see how much every part of everything that we do here on Earth is shaped by gravity. We can't escape it. When we get home, it's terrible. You have to deal with it, but we just can't escape everything. Literally, we are formed. We look how we look. We do what we do because of gravity. So when you take that out of the equation, we can really unmask some other secrets. And Don's the one to figure that out.
Hi, thanks. I'm sure this is a question you get a lot, but what was the most physically demanding or difficult aspect of preparation, either early on or in the immediate training before you launched?
Sure.
colleagues, do you want to start on this one?
If I heard it correctly, what's the most difficult phase of training before launching for the mission?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so from my personal experience, I would say that our quarantine was the most difficult because we ended up staying for 32 days in quarantine because the launch kept slipping for one reason or the other. But before that,
I'm sorry, we had longer than that. We beat you.
And I thought it was a blessing. That's the way I didn't have to see a lot of people.
I would take extra days on space anytime. Quarantine, not so much. But the training was really fun. I would say that the way it has been designed, I really did not find it. It is challenging. It is hard because you're learning 10 different things for one single purpose at different times. But all of it is designed and curated in a way that everything comes together beautifully. You know everything when you're launching for the mission. I was really confident and prepared for my mission. But once you get launched and you reach the orbit, I think that is where the shift happens because your body undergoes changes which you did not experience before, at least for who are traveling for the first time. And then you have to adapt and work, even though you know everything. Things become slow and there is some confusion and you're not feeling very well, and then you have to do things. So personally, I would say that was the most challenging part for me, the initial 2 days, I would say. But other than that, the training itself was super fun and designed very well to understand each and every aspect of this space flight. Thank you.
As Nick mentioned earlier, these large exercise devices, we're not going to be able to take those with us on smaller spacecraft as we go further. But what we have on orbit is amazing. And we have learned much since the time that SOX was actually on space station about preparing ourselves and reducing that tendency for your muscles to atrophy, maintaining the calcium in our bones so it doesn't dissipate over time. We've learned so much, and we're still learning. I worked out every single day I was in space. Never took a day off. Even the morning I did a spacewalk, I got up early and worked out. And literally, I won't tell you the numbers, but I doubled my strength in squat and deadlift from where I started. I mean, doubled in space. Never reaching goals or levels I never thought I would reach in my life, much less at this age. Because of the workout regime and what we've learned over time and what our astronaut strength conditioning rehabilitation specialists, ACERs, and the processes that they have incorporated over time and what we've learned, taking us to heights like we've never experienced before. And that's part of planning to go beyond, right? Going beyond, be able to function. You don't want to get to Mars and not be able to function for a week, right? You want to be able to hit the ground running. And we're step by step being able to do that. And that's something else real quick about science. Science is literally baby steps. That's not just in space. That's wherever science is being done, wherever it's taking place. It is little by little, learning and growing. And that's one of the great things about the space station, having lasted as long as it has. We're continuing to do science, taking baby steps beyond steps that were learned like a decade ago. And we're continuing to learn and go forward. And that's a huge plus for all that we're trying to accomplish.
My wife, our embassy, to host such a distinguished gathering, a unique occasion for us. We've always had people in this house before, as I was just remarking earlier, who have always have Earth-centric view of the space. So first time we have people who have a space-centric view of the Earth, so which is a unique perspective. I'm sure every bit instructive for each one of us. We are bureaucrats, we tend to get very cynical very quickly. So it's good to, sometime presence of dignitaries like you is just enough to sharply focus on our own inadequacies in terms of how we as people tend to look at our own world, really. Astronaut Sunita Williams, astronaut Butch Wilmore, astronaut Hague, Ms. Casey Swales. It's really a pleasure. Is Shubanshu joining us on this screen? Yeah, okay, he's not here. So we'll have our own astronaut, Shubanshu Shukla, who recently went up, joining us here. We also welcome other guests from NASA, my colleagues from the embassy and other guests here this evening. It's really a special and a privileged occasion for us to be welcoming. India and Indian Space Agency, Indian Space Research Organization and NASA have had a excellent series of cooperation activities over a period of years. Again, it started in our space program. When it started off, it essentially started with a very heavy focus on building space assets which could focus on delivery of education as a governance. That was our primary requirements in early 70s. Education policy had been framed, but education delivery needed to be there. And in 75, we first launched one of our most transformative experiments, which was the satellite instructional television experiment or site. I remember in my school days, I was myself a beneficiary of some of those programs, which were then to be beamed through Doordarshan into the schools. Really, the key aspect of that was the social impact of that. How science interfaces with the social governance and the educational governance in this case was truly remarkable. Clear example that what we do in space is not necessarily esoteric. It has very real impact on the ground. It touches the lives of the people where it matters most, where it really counts. We have since then done several others, path-breaking programs as our own space program evolved. It interfaced very well with how we were on a catch-up curve in that sense in terms of building our space program, building the entire ecosystem of science, engineering, research, and applications built around it, which we could then use downstream in terms of our own economic, social governance, but also the development of science itself. Many experiments, I'm told about this NASA Moon Mineralogy Mapper M3 research program, our Chandrayan's program, Chandrayaan 1 mission, Chandrayaan 3 mission, essentially our mission to the moon. And most recently, in terms of our institutional engagement, India being part of the Artemis Accords, which is a collective effort to beneficial use of the outer space for the entire humankind. Most recently, I think in July, just a couple of months ago, NASA and ISRO collaborated to launch its synthetic aperture radar, NISAR, about which we would hear more as we go along. Again, another example of how we continue to build our partnership, advance science, but also deliver to what is required by the society in terms of its practical use. It has truly been a remarkable journey, not just for our respective space programs, but also by the two governments. And in this partnership, the triangulation of our society-to-society engagement, in many ways, not talked about that frequently, but felt very deeply because this collaboration then actually delivers to the people on the ground in real terms. Future is clearly bright. We are looking at our own, India is looking at its own manned mission to moon, but also its own space program, which we are expecting to be ready between 2028 and 2035, its own space station, and of course the Gaganyaan mission about which I spoke about. And in all this, NASA has truly been really an exemplary partner for us. I don't think our journey of partnership and cooperation would have reached this far, but for the excellent support partnership we've enjoyed with NASA. On this note, I would like to once again thank 3 astronauts, senior dignitaries from NASA, to be with us here this evening. We will hear soon about their experiences as we progress in the evening. But as we talk to them and try to understand the space and its uniqueness, somewhere along we will also be talking to the inner child in ourselves, because no matter how much we grow, I think the curiosity tag that links to that inner child will always remain alive. And I think somewhere that's probably most germane to how we look at space and how we approach, of course in this case, in a collaborative fashion. So thank you so much for gracing this occasion this evening. We truly value your presence, your support, and your values for us. Thank you so much.